Today, we're diving into a really groundbreaking Canadian initiative. It's one that connects, the final frontier of space with the foundational rights of Indigenous peoples. It's a story of sovereignty, tech, and reconciliation, and it's all launching from one single incredible platform. So it all really starts with this one question. What on earth could possibly link Canada's national security way up in the Arctic with the fight for Indigenous rights in our digital age? Well, the answer is way more profound. And honestly, involves a lot more satellites than you'd probably think. You see, the story of Star Nations really begins by tackling two critical frontiers, where Canada is facing a major crisis. One is happening in the icy north, and the other, well, it's happening in the digital world. Okay, so on one hand, you've got this vulnerable north. With all the new geopolitical tensions and the ice melting, Canada's surveillance and communication up in the Arctic have these huge critical gaps. But on the other hand, you've got this totally modern rights crisis unfolding, something called digital colonialism. Get this, an estimated 95% of all Indigenous data is held on corporate or government servers, a lot of the time without any consent or any benefit to the communities themselves. And this is just such a powerful way to frame the issue. The current model, it's just a repeat of an old pattern. First, it was the extraction of resources from the land. And now, it's the extraction of data from communities. Same story, different century. And believe me, this isn't a news story. It's part of a long historical pattern. You can trace it from the Indian Act back in 1876, which basically institutionalized economic exclusion, all the way to resource extraction in the 20th century with zero benefit sharing. This new era of digital colonialism is just seen as the next chapter in a really long history of exclusion. But what if one single project could actually address both of these massive crises at the exact same time? Well, that's the incredible vision behind Star Nations. So what is Star Nations? It's a historic venture, simple as that. It's set to become Canada's first Indigenous-owned and operated space company, and it's designed to deliver on both Arctic security and data sovereignty. And this is not just some idea on a napkin. It is backed by some serious experience. We're talking leadership from the Onion Lake Cree Nation, which is Canada's largest oil-producing First Nation. They have over $100 million in annual revenue and more than 60 years of proven success in managing really complex businesses in remote environments. They know what they're doing. All right, so the big question is, how does an Indigenous-led space company actually go about solving these huge national challenges? The plan is, well, it's as innovative as it is ambitious. Let's break it down. It's all built on three core pillars. First, there's a ground campus for innovation and entrepreneurship. Second, there's the actual space hardware, the Eagle OneSat satellite constellation. And third, and this is so important, a powerful set of guiding principles known as OCAP-RPET. Now, this slide really explains that strategic leap into space. Think about it. Down here on Earth, data centers are facing an energy and water crisis. They're insanely power-hungry and really costly for the environment. But in orbit, you get infinite solar power, natural cooling from the vacuum of space, and a path to true data sovereignty, because you're outside of any single country's jurisdiction. It's just brilliant. But what really guides all this technology is the philosophy, and that's OCAP. It's a set of principles developed by First Nations leaders, and it stands for ownership, control, access, and possession. It's a framework that ensures Indigenous communities, not some outside corporation, are the ones who govern their own data. And look, this isn't just some theory or a nice mission statement. The OCAP principles are literally built right into the technology. Onion Lake Cree Nation owns the data, period. They control who can access it through clear governance. Indigenous communities get priority access, and the data itself is physically held on secure Canadian servers. This is how you break that cycle of external control. So when you put all of this together, what do you get? Well, the result is a completely new kind of partnership, one where pretty much everyone, from the federal government all the way to remote communities, really stands to win. For the Canadian government, Star Nations is just a powerhouse of a solution. It helps them fulfill their 5% Indigenous procurement mandate. It gives them critical Arctic surveillance they desperately need. It directly answers the Truth and Reconciliations Commission's call to action for the corporate sector, and it helps close that massive digital divide in the North. It's a win-win-win-win. And that 5% federal procurement target, that's a huge policy driver here. Right now, in the space sector, Indigenous participation is basically near zero. Star Nations changes that, practically overnight.
And think about the human impact. The project is aiming to bring reliable, high-speed internet to over 50,000 households and businesses in remote Arctic Canada. I mean, that is an absolute game changer for economic development, for education, for healthcare, for everything.
And let's be clear, this is not a small niche project. The total addressable market for all these military and civilian services is estimated at over $1.5 billion. That just highlights the massive economic potential we're talking about here.
But of course, the most transformational benefits are for Indigenous nations themselves. This represents a whole new era of economic self-determination. It finally gives them control over their own digital future. It creates high-tech jobs and wealth right there in their communities, and it sets up a global model for Indigenous leadership and advanced tech. So when you step back and look at the whole thing, what does it all mean? Well, Star Nations isn't just launching a satellite into orbit. It's launching a whole new way of thinking.
There's this quote from the project's vision that just captures it perfectly. Data is kin, not oil. It completely reframes data. It's not a resource to be extracted and sold. No, it's treated like a relative, something to be protected, to be respected, and to be cared for with a real sense of kinship.
Ultimately, Star Nations is so much more than just a company. It's a new paradigm for what sovereignty and reconciliation can actually look like in the 21st century. And it's all guided by that powerful principle of responsibility to the next 7 generations.
And it leaves us with this powerful final thought. Star Nations proves that the challenges of the future, whether they're in space or in our data, can be solved by looking to ancient principles of stewardship and community. It really makes you wonder, if sovereignty can be redefined from orbit, what's next?